Before I showcase my final project and discuss my lessons learned, I would like to say thank you to many people in the class, and I'll start with Rebecca. Specifically, Rebecca, all of the resources that you posted each week, I found them incredibly helpful, in particular the ones related to setting up a domain and the LinkedIn Learning course on Audacity. I'd also really like to express my gratitude to Felicia and Carla for reviewing my final project, and you really provided me with very tangible feedback that I could incorporate and make updates based off of. I also would like to thank Miranda, Christina, Mark, Marley, Karen, and Linda for reviewing my individual assets. I really appreciated the time and effort that everyone put into their tool demonstration. I learned so much from everybody, but I have to give particular kudos to Christina for your Audacity demo, as well as Carla for your H5P demo. Those ones really helped me a lot. Now, without further ado, I'd like to present my final project, which is a website dedicated to educating newly diagnosed adults with type 1 diabetes who have little to no previous knowledge or experience with it. My site can be accessed from swandiabetes.com. I'm going to start off by reviewing the homepage. So in the middle, I've got what I consider to be an inspirational and hopeful message to people who are newly diagnosed that managing is possible. I also decided to use some photos from Pixabay and Pexels, just showing a diverse group of people to let folks know that this is not a disease that discriminates. There's no one certain type of person. It's not based on body weight or eating habits. That type 1 diabetes, as I'll talk about in the presentation, is an autoimmune disease and it can happen to anyone. At the top of the screen, there are links to the 3 modules, and there's also a link to sources. People can look at these in any order, but I did number them to make the recommendation that they start with the first, second, and then the third one. So let me go into the introduction module and I'll walk through all of the assets on there. At the beginning of the introduction module is a video that I created using Animaker and posted to YouTube. It's called What is Type 1 Diabetes? And it explains at a very high level, a very non-technical level, what diabetes is. And I really had a lot of fun creating this. I've never done anything like that before, and I'm really proud of the way it looks. So I hope if you haven't seen it that you'll get a chance to check it out. The next component is a series of flashcards of critical diabetes-related terms and definitions. And I used photos, I used terms and definitions to help with the association. People can obviously turn the cards as many times as they need to, and they can flip back and forth if they need to review anything. I used H5P to create this asset. Next up is a knowledge check based on the terminology from the previous asset. There are 10 definitions, and learners are asked to type in the answer. Based on the synchronous session from Tuesday, I saw that somebody had done a drag and drop activity, and I've decided that I'm going to change it because even if there's one little typo or any misspell, the person's going to get the answer wrong, and that can just feel very defeating. I want people to feel very good about having looked at the terms and being able to understand what they're all about. Certainly, they can go back up here and find the appropriate flip card and get the correct spelling, but that's not the point. The point isn't spelling, the point is that they're understanding the terms. The next item on this page is stories from others living with type 1 diabetes. So some of my fellow type 1 diabetic friends, I had asked if they would consider just sharing their story. How old were they? What were the circumstances of diagnosis? And then what advice do they have for newly diagnosed individuals? What I decided to do, again, also based on some things that I saw on Tuesday's synchronous session, is I'm going to change this to look more accordion style. I think the information is really valuable, but I think the way it's presented, I can definitely clean it up and just really improve the overall aesthetic of the page. The final element is an infographic. I created this in Canva, and I did save a backup copy after learning on Tuesday that Canva can make changes and it can impact what shows up on my website. So I was sure to make a backup. And the purpose of this is just to give some high-level tips using an acronym CHECK. So controlling blood sugar, making healthy food and activity choices, empowering yourself, staying connected, making connections, and then remaining knowledgeable by reading and asking questions. So that is the introduction page. What I also decided to do, and I saw this, somebody had included this in their presentation, was to do a next page down here so that folks don't have to scroll all the way back up to the top. So these are some changes that I am going to incorporate. The next page, Module 2, is on management tools. I included a very brief introduction to let folks know what this section is all about. And essentially, it's about the various methods of delivering insulin as well as checking one's blood glucose. So these are videos that I sourced from YouTube. They are not ones that I created, although in the future, I will be creating my own videos on these topics. There's one on how to inject insulin with a syringe, how to inject insulin with an insulin pen, and then how to use an insulin pump. The glucose monitoring tools show how to check your blood sugar using a blood glucose meter and then using something called a continuous glucose monitor system. Module 3 is all about nutrition tips. It starts off with an introduction, really letting folks know the importance of maintaining good nutrition and making healthy food choices, as well as the importance of working with a registered dietitian who more than likely will be part of the person's care team. The next section is on reading food labels, which I know when I was first diagnosed, I really didn't have a lot of understanding of what was on those food labels or how to accurately read them. So I thought this would be a really helpful tool for people who are brand new to the disease. And it's just an infographic that goes over the most common components of a food label, how to read them, and what each of those elements mean. And finally, the last component was a short presentation on diabetes and nutrition, which I will now show you. So the purpose of this presentation, again, is to really hone in on the importance of good nutrition, what it can do for you to maintain a healthy diet, working with your dietitian, and then I offer some tips on what are considered to be healthy foods and different groupings of foods. So there's healthy carbohydrates, there's fiber-rich foods, heart-healthy fish, and then healthy fats. Of course, there are plenty of other food choices that people can make, so the intent of this was just to give a few ideas. There's some information, tips about meal planning from the American Diabetes Association, as well as some information about how to get started. I also embedded a video from the American Diabetes Association. It's a registered dietitian talking about meal planning, and I thought this would be a very helpful short video for people to get some information on that. The last page are just the sources that I used to create this document. All in all, the purpose of the website is not to override what the doctor says or not to interfere with any medical advice that the individual receives from their document, but to really, from their doctor, but to really just provide people with some initial education. And hopefully what it will do is give them some information when they have conversations with their doctor, just some starting points. So this was really meant to be very introductory, educational, and to be used as a conversation starter. And over time, I will definitely be adding more to it, more knowledge checks and additional modules. I'm really proud of myself. This is very bittersweet because this is my last class in the certificate program, and it's been a long road, but it's been really amazing. And so again, I do want to thank Rebecca. I'd like to thank all of my peers and also UMass Boston. I wouldn't be here without this particular class. I've never built a website. I've never designed a website. So this has really just been a fascinating process. And it's really taught me to have a strategy and a process in place for doing this, which includes just being patient with myself, making sure I read all the directions, that I really understand the tools that I'm using, and to have people check my work. I don't often get an opportunity at my job to have others check my work or others review my work, but I've started to work with a peer who has agreed to help me out with that. And it's really boosted my confidence. So I have a new attitude towards technology, not just the ones that we've learned about in this class, but anytime I approach new technology, I feel much more confident about it, and it's just not as scary anymore. So thank you again. Good luck, everybody. Congratulations. This is a huge accomplishment. And again, thank you for all of your information. I hope I was able to add as much value to your experience as you were to mine.